Hello, fam. I've been isolated since the beginning of COVID, and part of me thinks if I had been, if I had the wherewithal to do the right thing, I would have started this back in March, or at least back in June when I got laid off and suddenly had infinite free time. But I didn't. What I have been doing, aside from watching way too much TV and movies, is reading a lot. So I thought I would talk about what I'm reading as I finish it. Today I finished three New York Dadas, and it was really good. This is a book that's a collection of documents having to do with New York Dada. So basically, World War One ish. Um, when Marcel Duchamp came over to the U.S. essentially to avoid fighting in World War One, because let's face it, World War One was a fucking nightmare and served no good purpose whatsoever. So anyone who could avoid fighting in World War One did the right thing. He came over, and I think he came slightly before the war started, but I'm not. I'll have to look that up. And he was a charming 20-something-year-old man who was a really good artist who had made a big splash in New York with at the Armory show with his nude descending a staircase, which was sort of a futurist uh, nude painting of fragmented images of flesh going down an incline, and it people had never seen things like that before. So it was a shocker, and it was like the big success of the Armory show. So he already had fans in the U.S. when he showed up, and because he was so charming and people liked to be around him, he easily made more friends. Um, and one of the people he made friends with came after him, basically working for the French government, was Henri Pierre Roche. I'm not sure if it's Roche or Rocher, but I'm gonna say Roche. So Henri Pierre Roche was is best known now as a novelist, and he wrote the thing he's probably most famous for is writing the novel Jules and Jim, which Francois Truffaut made into a classic French New Wave film. But he wrote basically what he would do is he would take his life and lightly fictionalize it, which apparently Jules and Jim is. And another thing he wrote that wasn't published when he died in 1959 was a novel called Victor, and Victor was about him, Marcel Duchamp, and the third woman, third person in this triangle, this sort of love triangle, Beatrice Wood. And so the book contains Victor heavily annotated because it 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 is almost 100% accurate, but only if you know who's who, because he's changed all the names. Victor, the title character, is actually Marcel Duchamp, and his name in the book was P. Let's hold on. I have it all written down here. He was called Pierre, which his full name was Henri Pierre, but apparently people called him Pierre, and he called Marcel Duchamp Victor as a nickname, but shortened that to a French nickname version of Victor, Totor. And Beatrice Wood in this, who is called Patricia. And Beatrice Wood was a young, beautiful American woman who had a bohemian bent, and right, there's an introduction by Dawn Aids, who I recall as the author of a book on surrealism that I had back in high school. So she's been around writing about this subject for a long time. And then there's a lengthy section where all the characters in Victor are identified as the real life counterparts, um, like John Quinn and Walter Arensberg and so on. And then Victor follows that, and they obviously were looking at the manuscript because they have bits that were crossed out from the manuscript that they've included, and lots of footnotes, which makes it sound like a tedious read. But actually, Henri Pierre Roche's style is so breezy and it's so enjoyable, and boy, it makes you wish you were in New York City in 1916, 1917. And then it's followed by facsimiles of the two zines that uh, the three of them put together, called The Blind Man, issues 1 and issues 2, published in April 1917 and May 1917. And they were designed to coincide with the exhibition of independent artists, which is a non-juried, open to all art exhibit, but which was infamously refused. Fountain, the ready-made by Duchamp, signed R. Mutt, which was a urinal turned upside down, or on its side, I guess. And it just, the people who were running the exhibit, just, that was a bridge too far for them. And so the first issue of The Blind Man is sort of like, hey, this exhibition of independent artists is coming, and here's some of the exciting stuff that's going to happen. And then the second issue was essentially, hey, this exhibit happened, and Fountain was censored, and sort of had several pieces about Fountain, and Beatrice Wood was sort of at the center of it, and then it follows after the two facsimiles of The Blind Man with a excerpt from Beatrice Wood's autobiography, I Shock Myself, which I loved, and now I feel like I got to get the actual book, which was published in 1992. So she had a long life and a long career. She was over 100 years old when she died. And here's something that they include in the book about Beatrice Wood. We at Atlas Press were pleased and not a little surprised to receive an order from her for our newly published 4 Dadas Suicides in 1995, when she was 102. Oh my God. And 4 Dadas Suicides, I guess, had a lot of stuff about Arthur Craven, who mysteriously disappeared on his way, leaving the U.S. on a ship to Buenos Aires. And it was part of that whole Dada scene in New York. In any case, she seems like a real firecracker, and Henri Pierre Roche seems like a delightful writer whose work I'm going to have to delve into. And we all know Marcel Duchamp. And this book is totally entertaining. All the footnotes and everything in it are like, they don't feel like academic add-ons. They feel like they clarify. And the writers, Beatrice Wood and Henri Pierre Roche, are both really good. So I highly recommend it. What struck me as interesting is, or one of the things that struck me as interesting was that at the time when The Blind Man was coming out in 1917, there were just a ton of small magazines published in New York and around the world, really. And I guess, they're so small and so obscure that they're sort of like zines. and they included 291, which is uh, Arthur Stieglitz's book, our magazine, um, and his gallery. Wrong Wrong, spelled RONGWRONG, which I don't know what the contents are, but that just sounds great, and just a lot. So a bunch of great magazines, all coming out in the teens, right before the U.S. entered World War One, and it seems like it was a delightful scene in New York at that time. I would have loved to have been there. Anyway, that's my first book review for the internet. I hope you like it. Goodbye. And I'm drinking a Jameson's on the rocks. Even though I've been fasting all day, I thought I'd end up the day with a nice glass of whiskey.